Sorry, I got booted out of there for a second. Just let me know when an appropriate time would be to continue.
All right, I believe everything looks okay on the YouTube end. It is under Human Relations Commission.
Okay.
We can go ahead with that, the roll call vote.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and revisit the previous motion that was on the floor, made by Ms. Rodriguez, that had a second from Ms. Coy. So we're going to do a roll call for a vote on that motion. And the motion again was to, I'm sorry, I lost my thread here. Ms. Rodriguez, could you state your motion again for the board, please?
It's in the chat. Motion to suspend the rules and move item 5AB to position 4 in respect to Robert's rules, where committee reports come before unfinished business.
All right, and Ms. Coy seconded that motion? Ms. Coy?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna take a roll call. Tiffany DeBellet. Dolores Venable. Yes. Chris Weinbrenner.
Yes. Yes.
Veronica Coy.
Yes.
Millie Noyes.
Yes.
Ann Green. Ivan Melchior.
Yes.
Raynetta Waters. Brandon Oliver.
Yes.
Will Overfelt.
Yes.
Will Overfelt.
Yes.
Davidson Jones.
Yes.
Tanya Rodriguez.
Yay.
Alfred Green. Daniel Young.
Yes.
Susie Chandler.
Yes.
All right. So we'll move on to item 5, which is new business. Under that, we have two issues. The first one being the Vance Monument Statement. And we had a work group that was assigned to that, I believe. So I'm gonna let those folks report back to the board their findings and what their suggestions are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a really wonderful working group experience. Everybody that participated in the working group and contributed to the working group, I very much appreciate all of the things that all of you have brought and all the information, including the people that were in the Vance Monument Task Force, and also people of the community in Asheville that are impacted the most by the Vance Monument. Their feedback and recommendations helped us create this recommendation to City Council in solidarity with the Vance Monument Task Force's decision to remove the monument. I move to present the recommendation to City Council made by the working group in solidarity with the Vance Monument Task Force decision to remove the Vance Monument. Can I get a second?
Second.
Was that 2 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. And one more, just for the record, Ms. Rodriguez, you said you made a motion to approve the recommendation to City Council.
Before I move to vote on the recommendation, Madam Chair, I wish for the Human Relations Commission to hear the recommendation before.
That was my next request. Okay. Thank you. Feel free.
The recommendation from the working group is as follows. We, the aforementioned members of the Human Relations Commission of Asheville, henceforth known as the HRCA, stand in solidarity with the Vance Monument Task Force's decision to remove the Vance Monument from its current location and hereby offer a formal recommendation to the Asheville City Council. We, the aforementioned members of the HRCA, strongly recommend that the Asheville City Council swiftly and decisively accept and implement the decision rendered by the appointed Vance Monument Task Force to remove the Vance Monument from downtown Asheville in the span of 90 days from today, in order to prevent residents and visitors in and of Asheville from potential and or continued health and public safety issues, so that we may all move forward with good faith efforts supported by the peoples of Asheville, the Buncombe County Commissioners, the members of Asheville City Council, to make the city of Asheville an equitable and more inclusive place for all. Motion to vote to recommend to City Council.
Before we have that motion, I would like to ask the board, does anybody have any discussion or questions or anything to add to that before we make a motion to vote? Anyone?
Mr. Jones, I think you're muted.
I would like to ask either Kim Rooney or Richard White or Brad where they are in the process today with the Vance Monument.
So this item is scheduled to go before the City Council on March 23rd for consideration of the monument.
Does that mean the City Council has not made a decision about it?
No, this will, staff will present information on the bids to remove the monument and additional information about the next phase, if you will, for council consideration. So that won't be done until next Tuesday at their next City Council meeting. They'll discuss it that night.
Thank you. So it's an unknown today.
Yes, notice has been made by the City Council as of today.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments about the resolution to be sent? I can be in agreement with the ordinance. This is just some thoughts that I have. 90 days from today is one of the issues, the only issues that I have with this, because I wonder, is it possible to be able to do this within 90 days? And if that language in itself is more of a ask, a recommendation, or a demand. So some of the language within that, I would be okay with voting on that. But some of the language that is in it, I would like to see rephrased maybe. Because I don't know how it would come off within the demand of 90 days from the date, especially in the climate that we might have locally.
Dolores, this is Will. I've got a question. I've read the document, but I don't have it in front of me right now. Is the 90 days within 90 days to make an exact decision that it comes down, or are we saying that we expect it gone, finished?
Exactly, that's my question. So, Ms. Rodriguez, I guess you could answer that for us, maybe.
Before I do, Daniel, I'm just taking all the notes. Daniel had his hand up.
Yes, I got a few questions. So when we submit the recommendation after the 90 days, what is next? And why can't we have this done sooner before June the 16th come in? I mean, this is going to be a very important holiday for the community here in Asheville. And why is City Council dragging their feet?
I couldn't answer that question.
I'd like to respond, please.
Go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez.
The 90 days was a recommendation because when we bring something like this, it's important to have a timeline. When we have a timeline of action, what happens is that we suggest in the recommendation, because it's not a demand, it's a recommendation, and 90 days is plenty of time for them to get the bids, put it into action. The last time that the Vance Monument came down and was put back together, it took 2 weeks for it to be taken down and put back together. So this is just a one-way ticket to be taken down. So 90 days is plenty of time for the bids to come in, for the decisions to be made of what contractor to be brought in to pull it down, and have the Vance Monument come down within a week's time. Within 90 days, I think that within 90 days is a pretty generous amount of time to suggest to City Council and for the removal of the Vance Monument.
Okay, I got one more question. So are we expecting the monument to come down? And if not, what then? What are we going to do next if they vote to not bring it down?
Daniel, Commissioner Young, that's not our decision right now. The main motion is to recommend to City Council that we support the decision made by the task force to remove the monument. That's it. What happens after that, we can continue to recommend, but right now we're recommending in solidarity with the Vance Monument Task Force to pull it down.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is 90 days also the recommendation from the Vance Monument Task Force?
That's irrelevant.
Well,
Okay, I would have an issue with that then, definitely.
So what is irrelevant?
Why would we be asking for something to be done that the task force itself is not asking of its own, from its own board towards City Council? That would be kind of us overstepping our bounds into their territory. They should be making that type of ask, I believe. That's my opinion.
This was recommended by the co-chair, and we discussed this by the co-chair of the Vance Monument Task Force. If you feel the need to do the research to discuss this with her further, feel free to do so. This was discussed in a lengthy conversation where the time of 90 days was suggested that it was too long, actually, and that it needed to come down sooner. And the suggestion for 90 days came from me out of consideration of the red tape and the bureaucracy that happens with something so delicate as this issue.
Okay.
It is a reasonable time frame.
But just for clarity, their board has never asked to put a time frame towards city council, correct?
I
So
do believe that.
This is coming from us, correct? From what the proclamation that you read, the recommendation that you read, this would be our time frame putting to city council, correct?
I would like to call a point of order and a return to the motion. Do I have a second?
Well, if there's no more questions, second on the motion.
No,
All right, so if there's no more questions, we can take this to a vote. So I will be calling a roll call. So hold on one second, let me pull up the agenda one more time.
Madam Vice Chair, I believe you still have Mr. Young, who has his hand raised with a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't, it's hard to kind of see on here and I can't really hear really good. But bear with me, Mr. Young. Thank you, Brad.
Yes, could I got a question for Councilwoman Rowland. Since she's representing the council, city council, maybe that she can take the information back to them and tell them we want this thing resolved sooner than 90 days, and I'm voting no on it. I mean, it shouldn't take 90 days to remove this statute. I mean, come on, look what you're putting us through as a community. You're showing that what Asheville wants and what we think doesn't matter to nothing. You're showing our kids that what this man represents is okay. And I feel by myself that Asheville is trying to wiggle their way out of this without taking us down. The longer we wait, the longer they're going to have a reason why it's going to take 90 more days. This statute can be pulled down and we can be done with that. Then we can move on to something towards the schools helping our kids. We're wasting too much time on something that really shows the hate of what Asheville is about. Are we trying to move forward? Are we going to stick in the past?
I'm going to let Ms. Roney go ahead and answer the question as far as council is concerned about what council is aware of or how far they've made that in that process. Please.
Thank you for the opportunity. Daniel, I hear what you're saying, and I will gladly take every word of what you've offered to the council as a request as your liaison. I also will point to when the recommendations such as this one go through the process with a vote, that also will formalize it going to council.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Young, wanted to bring in also with respect to the formal procurement process that it takes and the amount of time that it takes for that formal procurement process to occur, and felt that 90 days was a reasonable amount of time to get the peoples involved that needed to be involved to pull it down in the right way. And so I understand that even if we put in 30 days, 60 days, or no time at all, it would probably be unsatisfying because it needed to come down tomorrow or yesterday. I understand that. I hear you big time. And so we felt that 90 days was a reasonable time to give the processes that are involved and with respect to honoring that we do support it coming down in a timely fashion.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, once again, Ms. Rodriguez, you put the motion again to the floor for a vote and was seconded. So I will begin to take roll call on that vote. And the vote is to support the recommendation in the form that is in from our board to City Council for the removal of the advanced monument within 90 days. Okay, so I'm gonna start the roll call. Tiffany DeBellet. Dolores Venable, no. Chris Weinbrenner,
Yes.
Veronica Coy,
Yes.
Melanie Noyes,
Yes.
Ann Green, Ivan Melkor,
Yes.
Renetta Waters, Brandon Oliver,
Yes.
Will Overfelt,
Yes.
Davidson Jones,
I abstain.
you abstain?
Yes.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. We actually don't have an allowance under the rules for abstentions. I apologize for that.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
But we are required by state law to cast a vote one way or the other.
What, is that true for Robert's rules as well?
It is for North Carolina public bodies. Unfortunately, it requires all members to vote unless they have been excused by the remaining members, and an excuse is only allowed under certain circumstances.
I still abstain. I abstain.
Brad, can we move forward, or what do we need to do at this point?
You can, and with all respect to Commissioner Jones, we are required to count any abstentions as yes votes under the rules.
I abstain.
Okay. Tanya Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Alfred Green, Daniel Young,
Yes.
Susie Chandler.
Yes.
All right. Motion was passed. So we're going to move on to the next order of business, which is the election of chair and vice chair. And I guess, Brad, you might have to take this over because we've never done it in this form of fashion before. And so I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So there is an item on your agenda to consider the election of a chair and vice chair. This is out of current time schedules with the predetermined terms for these individuals, but the body has the ability to make these changes at any points if it so chooses. So what we would need is simply a motion, and I would advise if you're dealing with both positions to do them one at a time. So I would suggest starting with the chair, and if someone would like make a motion to elect a new chair, you can do that. And if you want to go further and specify to elect a specific person as a new chair, then you can do it as a single motion. It does require a second and then a roll call vote.
Okay.
With Tiffany not
Alrighty.
here, is it we could kick down the road?
I'm sorry?
Since Tiffany isn't here, is it really fair to go forward with this? Could we kick it down the road to another meeting?
Yes, she is aware of the election tonight, and she has indicated her interest in not serving as vice chair either.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. White.
I just wanted to be fair to her.
Okay, thank you. All right. So so as Brad said, we're gonna make a motion. Do we have a motion to elect the new chair tonight?
I make a motion to elect the new chair.
Moved. I second.
Okay. Anybody have anyone in favor of a chair position? Any recommendations?
I got a recommendation.
Okay.
I recommend Dolores.
Thank you, Daniel. I do accept that nomination.
Does that need to be seconded? If it does, I second.
I'd like to
Madam,
nominate Tanya Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Second.
Madam Vice Chair, just for clarity, the way we are doing this, we are essentially opening the floor to nominations. So
Okay.
one person, yourself, has been nominated. I believe I just heard a second nomination. So we will take nominations. They do not require a second. Once there are no further nominations, then we can vote through a roll call vote of everyone's choice among those nominated parties.
Got you. Okay, thank you very much, Brad, for clarification again. This is all new to us all, so everybody bear with us. Okay, so are there any other nominations?
Who are the nominations right now?
Tanya Rodriguez.
Mr. Oliver, it was myself and Tanya Rodriguez.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Anyone else?
How about Chris? I'll nominate Chris.
Any others?
Is there a way fully
You're muted, Chris.
Is there a way that I can thank you and gracefully decline that nomination? Thanks.
I don't know what the North Carolina
Thank
rules
you.
are for that.
Though.
Yeah, no problem. I was trying to make it richer. That's okay.
Thank you.
We're good.
Okay. Any others?
Can I move that we can close the nominations?
Any seconds to close? Yes.
Second.
Okay. So,
Madam Vice Chair, you have the power to close the nominations once no further nominations are received, so you do not need to take a vote on that.
okay.
So at this point, if you're ready to close, you can do that if there are no other nominations, and you can proceed with a roll call vote on the two people who have been nominated.
All right. Well, I'll proceed with a roll call vote on the two people who have come up for nominations. Tanya. So we'll do a roll call for Tanya. All right, let me go back to the agenda again. Okay, sorry about that, folks. So Tiffany. Dolores. Nay. Chris.
I don't understand the voting. Are you asking, are we supposed to say which person or yay or nay?
You are selecting one of the two nominated individuals. So you should be voting on one of the two instead of a yay or nay vote.
Okay, thank you again, Brad. So of the two, let me start over. So Tiffany, so we're gonna vote between myself and Tanya. So Tiffany. Dolores. Christopher. Chris, I'm sorry.
Tanya.
Okay. Thank you. Veronica.
Tanya.
Melanie.
Tanya.
Ann. Ivan.
Tanya.
Renetta. Brandon.
Sonia.
Will.
Dolores.
Thank you, y'all. Davidson Jones.
Tanya,
Tanya,
Tanya.
Alfred Green. Thank you. Daniel Young.
Dolores.
Thank you. Susie Chandler.
Tanya, please.
All right. And it seems that Ms. Tanya Rodriguez has been voted to be the chair of the Human Relations Commission for the city of Asheville. Next,
Thank you,
we are going to vote for the vice chair position.
I nominate Brandon Oliver for vice chair.
We need a second on that motion.
You do not. No seconds are required.
That's right, because we're just going through. Okay.
Take as many
Any other
nominations as are offered.
I nominate Daniel Young. Any other nominations?
Dolores.
Any other nominations? All right. We'll go to a roll call between Brandon Oliver, Daniel Young, and Dolores Venable. Tiffany DeBellick. Dolores Venable, Daniel Young. Chris.
Mr. Brandon Oliver.
Veronica.
Brandon.
Veronica. I'm sorry. Melanie,
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, Brandon Oliver.
Ann Green. Ivan.
Brandon Oliver.
Will Overfeld.
Dolores.
Davidson Jones.
Brandon,
Tanya.
Brandon.
Alfred Green. Daniel Young.
Dolores.
Susie Chandler.
Brandon, please.
All right. It seems Mr. Oliver will be the vice chair for the Human Relations Commission for the city of Asheville.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to you folks. Okay.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
now we can move to the next order of business that we had jumped from 4 to 5. So now we're going to move back up to section 4, which is unfinished business for the 2021 and 2021 work plan comes up underneath this. So does anybody have any ideas or things they would love to work on or see our board work on?
I have an idea.
Okay, feel free.
Yeah, I would like to see an investigation into CPAC and its recent ending in meetings. And with that, an evaluation of future policing and public safety, how it relates to the defund movement here in Asheville.
Seconded.
Just for clarity, Commissioner Noyes, investigation into CPAC and the lack of meetings that has been happening, that there's no meetings.
Right. I'm just needing some clarity on why they are not having meetings and if they've disbanded or any updates on CPAC.
Is that something that Mr. White can answer?
I don't have that answer for you, but I can definitely look into it. And may I propose, you said an investigation. Is it an investigation or would you prefer just an update in terms of CPAC and its work?
An update would be fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you, Commissioner Noyes.
Okay. I think right now we're just in the brainstorming phases of trying to figure out what we would like to do as a board. So I'm not quite sure if we would have to take a vote on this measure right now. Brad, is that something we would need to do?
You do not need to take a vote. Perhaps if I could suggest you have a discussion and assemble all of those items that are brought up as a suggestion from the board, and then you can vote on it perhaps at your next meeting to make it the official work plan. But feel free to just proceed with the discussion without any votes unless you feel ready to vote on it this evening.
Okay. So I think right now we're just trying to have it'd be great just to brainstorm as a board just to see where we would like to go in the future. So that is a great place to start at, Ms. Noyes. So thank you for that suggestion. Anyone else?
Oh, yeah, I got a suggestion. What about working with trying to help keep these schools open for the kids?
Help keeping the schools open for kids?
Yes, I mean, back in what we're trying to do with the community is going against the closing of the schools. I think maybe it'd be better if we put some time into that for the future of our kids.
Daniel, are you talking about the primary school?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I would like to thank Dolores and Tiffany for the work they've been doing for the community. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Young. And I also think I can speak for Tiffany herself with this. We have been very lucky to serve on this board for the time that we have. And it has been an honor and a privilege for us to be able to do so. And we just hope moving forward that, the board continues to do great works and that the Human Relations Commission can move forward and be a driving force in equity and inclusion in the city of Asheville. So thank you for that, Mr. Young. And we also got your suggestion for our work plan. Anyone else have any ideas?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on the Disparity project that happened when we first started this group.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know where that is today. Have we moved the needle at all? And have we moved the needle on anything since we've been in existence around school, achievement gap, around affordable housing, around getting minorities contracts? Have we moved the needle at all? I'd like to get an update on have we moved the needle on anything that came out of the state of Black Asheville in 2017. Now, I see an opportunity. If we're going to take the monument down, who's going to do the work? I'd like to know that. Who's going to do the work if they take it down?
Excuse me.
I'd like to respond to those things. If I may. Rodriguez. I did have a conversation with Rosanna yesterday in relation to an update on the disparity study. And also once it, I agree, Commissioner Young, to use a Black contractor to remove it. Absolutely. That would make the most sense there. The two parts to this question. what has happened since the disparity study and an update on the disparity study, and also what happens after it goes to City Council. So after it goes to City Council, what was shared with me was that the Buncombe County Commissioners would have jurisdiction over what happens with the Vance Monument. And so that's as far as I know, with the information that's been given to me. And I'm just going to go to a document that I have in regards to the disparity study. So in 10/10/2020, the City of Asheville passed the Race and Gender Conscious Policy, and it took effect in 1/1/2021. There were new procedures for everyone to follow when it came to contracting. There was data collecting to make sure the contracting process is equitable. There was data collected to be used for 3 different things: to clear and to create up-to-date minority women-owned businesses, utilization, compliance, to make sure people are contracting minority women-owned businesses who are qualified to do the job and know who are, people who know who are. And also is that concerns that community contracts are not equitable. So there is a major shift to outreach minority-owned businesses in the community and keep track of how often minority and women-owned businesses are contracted without response, and to utilize the data to create tools to inform and connect the state with community with city contracts and business opportunities. Also, a certification program for the City of Asheville certification specific to certify minority women-owned businesses for city contracts in a 10-county region, utilizing the 10 counties identified in the disparity study. Also, Rosanna is willing to come next meeting and give us a presentation on the updates to the disparity study, what they have done, and what they've changed in the city to make sure that contracts that go into the city are more equitable for the community most impacted by non-equitable relations and human relations in Asheville.
Yes, and we've heard that before. I only want to know, has the needle moved at all? That's all I want to know.
It's moved as much as it can move in the times of COVID right now. So.
Yeah, I still want to know that. What progress have they made? That's all.
I guess that would be something that Rosanna would need to come and probably discuss with our board, definitely, to answer Mr. Jones's question, because we can't answer that question.
I don't want to know the procedures. I've heard those before. I just want to know how they measure success and what is the measurement that they have in terms of what's changed. That's all.
I would love to connect with you on that, Mr. Jones, to find out how we can get that question asked to Rosanna and bring it to the commission so that we all have a greater understanding of what it looks like for that needle to be moved and how important it is for it to be moved in a significant way.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking. I'm asking for everybody, not just for me. Okay, thank you. I read that.
I'd like to make the suggestion. I'd like to make the suggestion that we have budgetary in-service so we can be more participatory in making policy and fiscal recommendations to the council. I'd like, we have a lot of new members, and I think it's important for them to get up to speed on how the city budget and how much budgetary resources to fulfill some of our goals.
I agree with that. That's something I'd really like to know more myself. It's not something I'm very well versed in, and I think having that would help me be more informed about how to vote on things.
Isn't that being made available to people, Richard? Aren't there some workshops on how the budget works?
There are a number of budget workshops going on that are equity based. So yes, there are quite a few of those taking place. I'll see if I can find the schedule and put it in the chat if I can find the schedule of those meetings.
There's one tomorrow, I believe. No, it's the 24th, the 23rd or the 24th, I think.
Rather than put it in the chat, is there a way that you could email the schedule to us, Mr. White?
Yes, I can do that as well. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else want any suggestions, ideas? For me, one of the things that I like to see here locally, one of two things. I'm also interested in the minority contracting and equities issue as well, as Mr. Jones has brought up. But also during this time of pandemic, I like to see us also support equitable distribution of loan monies and equitable distribution and resources to get marginalized and people of color communities access to the vaccine that want it or that need it and don't have readily able access, especially since we're opening up more forms of more people being able to be vaccinated. I think because health disparities are something that has always affected people of color and marginalized people, and it's also an equity issue because healthcare always falls under equity. That's something that I would like for us to look at because we've seen the suffering of the pandemic upon Black and Brown communities locally. I also would like to look at some of the issues that we have pertaining to our achievement gaps within our local school systems and how we can, especially during the time that we faced during this pandemic, and now that we're seeing our kids going back to school, being able to help facilitate smooth transitions and decrease barriers that they have been exposed to during this pandemic, and trying to support communities and families in that too. That's just some of my idea.
You know, one of the patterns that I think we're falling into, we're becoming redundant to a lot of things that are going on. There's a lot of effort going in to get minority people, Black and Brown people, into facility to give vaccines. I mean, one group that comes to mind, the health department from the county and the Chosen have been doing signups to get people come into the editing center. I worked volunteer myself 3 times, and we had a big group come into the YMCA, and we were getting local people in the Black community to call one another, have a paper list first, and then have them show up and then go through the procedures. I think there's a lot of things that's been going on. I know people are looking at what's happening to the pods. A lot of our children are getting behind in pods. We have people that are getting broadband into housing. So I don't want us to be redundant to a lot of things that are going on. So I think we ought to exercise this discipline of asking who's doing what out there before we start talking about what we're going to do. Because there's a lot of effort out there that's moving in the right direction, I'm happy to say. But I don't want to be redundant to anything somebody else is doing.
And that's my whole point, supporting things and making sure that we support those things that are tangible, because I think sometimes we do start to support things sometimes, and that's how we get carried away. We talk about things and sometimes they're not really tangible, meetable goals. And so we keep talking about them over and over. And I just don't want to do the same thing, because remember the issue with CPAC, that was a year's conversation.
Yes.
And I just don't want to see that type of redundancy. So I guess I agree with you, like supporting things that people or things that have already been working and have proof of working and lending support to that. With recommendations to city council when it comes to being able to finance, fund, lend technical assistance and things of that nature. So I totally agree with you, Mr. Jones.
Okay. Thank you.
Dolores, I think it's important for us to continue to think about our ways to engage the community. I feel like we have fallen short on being and implementing a community engagement plan. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Dolores, I got a question to ask the city council lawyer, the attorney we got on here.
City Attorney Brad. Okay, go ahead.
And I was wanting to know if is there any way that we can make it be the first example where city in North Carolina that make it legal for a person with a felony that can go in and help with these kids. Because during this pandemic right now, you got 4 different pods that are working in Asheville in the Black community that I know of. And you got the whole community that's been putting in the work for this. And now when everything goes back to back to normal, the people that's been doing the hard works since the COVID is going to be shut off, are not going to be able to be usable no more. I forgot about. Like myself, I'm an ex-felon, and I'm working with the school system. But you got more people that's felons that are doing impactful work in the community, and when the schools and stuff goes back to normal, they're going to be left out. So I think it would be justified that we open some kind of door for the ones who are that has felonies that are able to help the kids in the schools, that are able to go in to help these kids with trauma to be able to be usable, instead of using somebody that they cannot relate to. Just because we have felonies don't mean that we cannot be used for our community. I mean, is there anything that we can do to adjust this matter? Because it's holding us back. It's not only holding us back with getting the best job that we want, but it's holding us back in our reality. We already went to jail, so why we got to continue to say, yes, I've been convicted of a felony, then you turn us down for this job, but since this COVID, we have been putting in the work. I know a lot of brothers and sisters that's been teaching at these pods, doing it for free because they love it, because they love their kids. But I think that we should at least give us an opportunity. Yeah, we messed up. Ain't nobody perfect. But give those people the opportunity to be used in the school systems where they can do. I mean, I know you cannot be used if you're a child molester or whatever, but certain crimes you can be used. You can be used as a mentor. You can be used as a recovery coach. These kids are looking up to us. They're not looking up to Joe, somebody they cannot relate to. They're looking up to Dolores, somebody they seeing on the regular. If the kids do not see you on the regular, they ain't gonna relate to nobody on this commission board, because I'm out in the community. I talk to these kids on the regular. But I mean, you got city council members that's getting elected. They're not coming back to the community. They use us for the votes, and then they give us their butts to kiss. We don't see them no more. They up on the pedestal, and we down here on their feet. So we got
a way that. And that's a good question of that is, if there was something that we wanted to advocate for that dealt with like changing policies, or I don't know whether it would be a law or such, but is that something that, our board has the ability to make recommendations to do?
So that's an excellent question, and thank you, Mr. Young, for bringing it up. I think that it's important to note, generally speaking, that there are some ordinances, policies, and laws at the local level that the city council has the power to affect. Now, some of the things that often come up that people are interested in changing can only be changed at the state level. And I think that what we're talking about here, a lot of that is a state scheme of a criminal law and how that plays into the ability to hire those individuals for the school system. But even with those laws that are dealt with at the state level, we still in the city council, as well as this board and the school board, can function as advocacy groups to the state legislature. In fact, with the city council, we just passed a legislative agenda, things that we don't have the power to enact locally, but we're asking our local legislators in Raleigh to fight for these sorts of things and to try to advance bills at the state level. So sometimes it is absolutely something that this body can make a recommendation to city council on. In other cases, it might be something you recommend that city council advocates to the state representatives. And I think that they do listen to those things because they want to hear from the community city councils the same way our city council wants to hear from you. So what you're speaking of, Mr. Young, specifically, I think is probably a state-controlled law for the most part. But I would highly recommend, if this is something the board feels strongly about, to advance recommendations for advocacy up to the city council. And you could always do the same thing to the school boards as well, who also have the ear of the legislators in Raleigh.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. That was some really good information, actually. Anyone else have any suggestions?
I do, if I may.
Sure, Ms. Chandler.
Thank you. I still would like to explore options or what's available in the city as far as recommendations for the conversations between the Department of Transportation and the police force when they're removing homeless encampments as it pertains to the weather. But if there is a way that we can research and get recommendations from our advocates for the homeless in the city about the best ways to handle those that don't risk lives.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any suggestions, ideas?
I think that at a certain point we need, it's been a while since we've had, so I consider putting that onto the schedule at some point.
Could you say that one more time, Chris? My phone is my
maybe.
camera, my volume keeps going in and out.
Sure. Board retreat.
Board, okay, thank you.
Sometime on down the road. Uh-huh.
Brad,
Okay.
I have a question. Is it possible to bring all of these things in an email and create working groups for them? Or do we have to vote on working groups? How does that work when we bring all of these brainstorming ideas and then maybe invite all of us in an email to develop working groups so that we can take on these initiatives?
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. You are a commission formed by the city council, and which means that you have the power to form or enable working groups. Now, what a working group is any number of your body less than a quorum. So you have 15 members. So the working groups need to be 7 people or less at all times. Now, I would advise that you not take any formal action to establish a working group, but simply agree among yourselves in discussion that a certain number of you can go ahead and form a working group outside of this body to discuss these things further and to bring back information on any one of these points to the full body. If you are only utilizing working groups as opposed to an official subcommittee, You do not have to worry about the public meetings laws because you are just a smaller group, less than quorum. You don't have any power to take action of this particular body. So the difference is if you were to take a vote and formalize and create a standing subcommittee, that would also be a public body. And it's very difficult at this point for us, given the virtual format that we're in, to facilitate those subcommittees. But anytime less than a quorum of you gather to discuss these issues, the open meetings laws do not apply. So you can do that and bring your information back to this public forum where you can discuss it amongst the full commission. So feel free to volunteer for working groups, to suggest working groups. No official vote needs to be taken. And make sure it is always 7 people or less. Probably even a smaller group might work better. And then come back at any point, let the chair or the liaison know you're ready to present some information, and we can add it to the agenda at that point.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Is it possible for us to create working groups today in relation to the things that have been coming up? Or would it be more feasible to do that in relation to time to do that over email?
I would advise strongly not communicating with the full group over email, because that too could actually be considered an open meeting if all of you are communicating, even digitally. So what I might suggest is you have a list now of several items. We are running somewhat short on time, but certainly at this point, anyone can send the chair. And now I think we have a new chair. A recommendation or a suggestion that they're willing to form a working group. And you can maybe go ahead and get together and begin working, or you can add it to your next agenda for open discussion if you feel like waiting till next month.
Thank you. I would also like to add a couple of more things, initiatives that we were discussing in the working group, in the recommendation working group in relation to support for the reparations resolution. Also to form a working group around ADA compliance in support of what the City Council is working on. Also, a working group, suggest a working group to recommend and suggest complaint protections based in equitable human relations and the protections of human rights for all those bringing complaints to the City of Asheville and from complaints within the City of Asheville that details accountability and protects the complainant from potential retaliation. So if anybody would be interested in a working group in that way, let me know. And thank you for letting me be of service.
Any other ideas, recommendations?
Since Susie brought up the encampments, Susie, would you feel comfortable touching base with Beloved and seeing if there's a way that our commission could assist? Is that something that you would feel comfortable taking on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great.
All right. If there are no more ideas and recommendations,
I'm planning, since I asked about, I'm planning on attending the budget briefings. I think it's important for us. I went through one round of rule, so I think it's important that if we are available to sessions, we take them.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. If there are no more recommendations or ideas, I move to go on to the next item on our agenda the second time, and that's updates from the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And it would be Mr. White, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Just want to let you know that we anticipate the the advertisement to go live for the director here in the next week or so. You may have heard that Paulina Mendez, our training consultant, moved on to the county in a new position. So that leaves Yashika Smith and myself in the Office of Equity Inclusion. And so we are covering the office and also activating an employee group as well to help us with the work until we're able to rehire the positions within our office. So the work of equity inclusion does continue, but we're just down to 2 employees in the office at the moment. But we do plan to completely refill those positions. And so those actually go live soon.
Thank you, Mr. White. Anybody have any questions? Or?
Yeah, how many positions, Richard, are you talking about?
There are a total of 4 in the office: a director, and then 3 other positions. In the training consultant and human relations analyst, those 2 positions are now vacant, and we are advertising for the director. Yashika Smith is our inclusive engagement and leadership manager, and she's with us in the office.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Knight.
Is there any way to ask for a budget update as it pertains to the Office of Equity and Inclusion? Or is there a link to see something like that? And then is there any way to review the hiring contract for the new director?
So I believe the budget document is online, but I can certainly provide additional information for you. Set your next meeting if you want more information on the Office of Equity Inclusion, the specific budget for that office. But I do believe it's included within the city's budget online. And in terms of the contract, can you be more specific in terms of what are you looking for there?
Just a review of it. That's all.
The contract for the consultant who's handling the search, is that what you're looking for? Yes. We can share that. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
There's also
a
question in the chat box.
Mr.
Commissioner Young concerning the $50 million for COVID-19. Actually, the city of Asheville will receive around $26 million. I think the $50 million goes to the county. But for the city, we are currently looking at opportunities of how those funds will be used. We're waiting on guidance, though, from the federal government. There has not been a lot of guidance in terms of how those funds can be used. And so we're waiting for further guidance to determine how we can best use that funding.
Okay. Can I ask you a question, sir?
I had a question regarding.
I'm sorry.
I had a question regarding from Mr. White. Is there an effort in the hiring process? I know that you guys have consultants who are helping you. Is there a focus on trying to hire somebody qualified who is also local, who knows the history of Asheville and more particularly Black Asheville?
And so we think someone having that knowledge is very helpful, but it's not a requirement. But that's something we'll definitely be working through as we move through the process and the interview process of learning more about the candidates' understanding of the city of Asheville and our African-American community.
Alex, for credit.
Mr. Young, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. White. I was asking a question about the money for the COVID stuff. Is there any way that money can be used for the pies that are already that's working now for the communities, in some way where it can be used like for the wine mine, and it will not be going in the hands of the mountain bids where the money is distributed equally to the community? That you got small business people here that's been turned down for the PPP loans, the SBA loans, and you got business here like the Cambria that's been getting the loans, but not giving none of the money to their employed, to the workers who have been working. Maybe that money can be distributed to our community, to the workers here. They have not been getting no money from the the companies that's been getting the money to help jumpstart our community.
So yes, we're still waiting for more guidance from the federal government in terms of the requirements of how we can use that funding. At this point, we don't have that. And so we're waiting for the federal government to release more information around the guidelines of how those dollars can be spent.
Okay, and I got one more question for you. I want to piggyback on about what the coordinator was talking about picking somebody from the community that knows the community to work with you on Shanika. Wouldn't that be the best way to do it, instead of getting somebody that's not from Asheville, who don't know nothing about Asheville, don't even have no feeling for the community? Wouldn't it be better to have somebody that's from us to be able to work with us, instead of getting somebody that's gonna get paid for the position? I guess I don't know if they're getting paid for it or not, but I'm pretty sure you can get some people that's from Asheville that would do it for free if they really truly love and want to see the betterment of our community. I mean, can we vote on that? Who's going to be picked and who's not going to be able to get the position?
No, the city manager will be responsible for hiring the director. But what I would say, if you know anyone in the community who you think would be interested in this position, certainly have them apply. Once the ad goes live, we certainly want to know who those individuals might be. So if you know of folks, let us know that, because we certainly want to make sure they are aware of the position and the work, and we want to know about them as well.
What's the requirements, and what's the requirements for the position? I mean,
yes, we met yesterday with consultants. They are firming up the profile for the position, and so that's what we hope to release in the next week or so. It will lay all that out in a recruitment brochure that will have the qualifications we're looking for listed in that brochure.
Would you get turned down for being a felon, or would that be a reason to turn us down, or what?
I'll defer to the attorney on that one in terms of how we would address that issue.
The city of Asheville, with the sort of eliminate the box initiative we had a few years ago, eliminated that on our application for employment. So that's no longer a requirement to disclose that on our application process.
Okay. Thank you.
I would also like to add, we did have one public comment that was emailed in to our board. It came from Mr. Grant Million. And his comment was dealing with equity and inclusion. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we're brainstorming ideas, and I would be remiss if I did not bring up Mr. Million's public comment here. I believe it is also posted. Sarah, could you clarify that it's posted in the comment section of the Zoom, I believe?
It's actually in the shared folder for the committee, and also posted on the committee webpage.
Okay, thank you. So so I wanted to also, before we ended this conversation, bring his comment up. And when I read it in the shared folder, I guess he was referring to Tanya. So I'd like to ask her to maybe delve into maybe the conversation that you and Mr. Million had about his public statement and how to further that.
The only conversation I had with Mr. Millen was in regards to ADA compliance.
Okay. Because he was asking questions to send him information about whether, and so I didn't know how to answer that question because I didn't know what the conversation persisted of. And I think his issue was concerning whether or not we have enough members on our board that meet the requirements under Americans with Disabilities, that we're supposed to have 2 people on our board that represents the AWD community.
I'd like to add that not all disabilities can be seen.
Absolutely. And so I guess for our board, I guess he was asking the question, he wanted to have clarification that we do have those 2 members. So I guess that I would have to ask that question to the city attorney, perhaps.
The HRCA was formed via an ordinance that was passed by the city council. there is a very specific set of requirements for membership for what the characteristics of each member of the 15 member body is. There are, all of those can be found in that ordinance for you to review. I will say that there is no such legal requirement that I'm aware of that this board have a specific number of persons with disabilities included on the board membership.
So I hope that answers, thank you, Brad. I hope that answers Mr. Million's question. I know that that was the public comment that was sent in to us previous to our meeting. So I just wanted to make sure that we gave that comment value and got an answer from Mr. Million. So thank you, Brad, for that. And I hope that answers Mr. Million's concerns. So is there anybody else with anything?
I have a question for Mr. White. So the community has been made aware that a third of APD has left the police department. We are wondering if there is any talk about where the funds for those salaries would go to, and if they're going to stay within APD or if it's within our realm to make recommendations on where that money should go.
So last fall, the city undertook a reimagining public safety initiative, and that effort is continuing through the budgeting process this year. So at this point, no decisions have been made, but that will be worked out through the current budgeting process that's taking place now.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Before we close the meeting, I would like to thank Dolores for chairing this meeting today and the work that you and Tiffany have done with the HRCA. And it's been an honor to serve with you. And I really appreciate all that you've done and brought to us and to the community of Asheville. And thank you for all of your votes. And I look forward to serving the city of Asheville and with all of you moving forward.
Again, thank you, Tanya. And I'm sure Tiffany feels the same. It's been an honor to serve again. And we look forward to working with everyone. And we just want to see this board do very well. That's the only hope that we have. That's the only reason why we've been here all this time. And we just look forward to better works onward and forward. So thank you, folks. So with that being said, Mr. Jones, did you have anything?
Ditto.
Okay, thank you so much. So without further ado, would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move that we adjourn.
So moved.
Like a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, folks. It's been a pleasure. Have a great month, and we'll see you soon.